Schalke. Oh, they've done it! Simon Terodde, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau und weiß sein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. Welcome to episode 173 SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me as always, co-host Jack Mangan. How are we doing tonight?
Doing okay. Not a victory Monday, unfortunately, and it's
Misery
been quite
Monday.
a while. Yeah, been quite a while since we have had one of those, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
But potentially something's looking in the right direction. Maybe not. We'll find out. We'll have to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's Englische Woche, and obviously all these losses is. Now I'm drinking on the pod like you, right? So I got a little Bulter drink, right? Angry Orchard here. So hopefully, I'm sure the boys are drinking plenty of this, right? But yeah, it's been tough lately. It seems obviously new manager, no sporting director, all this stuff is going on, and now we got Englische Woche, which is a blessing and a curse, right? Because we got two games, here this week, tomorrow and Saturday. And then we get like 2 months plus off because of the World Cup. We don't have a game until January 21st versus Eintracht. That's a heck of a long break, Jack. Thoughts on the big break, to start this thing off?
I mean, first of all, the Englische Woche is potentially not great just because of how thin we are at the moment. And so having that quick turnaround, you're not going to have as many opportunities for squad rotation in terms of keeping people fresh for these final couple of matches, just because we don't have that many people to call upon on the bench with all the injuries. Yep. So from that perspective, maybe not the best. Also ending on, Bayern Munich, heading into that long break. Once again, probably not the best way to end, not the most positive note you would imagine in terms of how that's likely to go. But the break itself, I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. Unfortunately, with this loss, we are at 8 consecutive losses?
7 or 8.
Now.
I lost count.
Something like that. So we've been on the skid. I think it's honestly can probably come at a good time and will provide Reis an opportunity to work with I'm sure they're going to be on some amount of break for part of this, the players that are not involved in the World Cup, but he'll have an opportunity to train with them without games and potentially help really get them organized and as good an opportunity I think as any manager is going to have to implement something early into his time, once again without the penalty of the games happening in the meantime. He would have had I guess 4 technically before the break, which is not a small amount, but then a lot of time then to work with people. So hopefully they take advantage of that time and it ends up being a positive. That's how I'm choosing to look at it for the time being.
We made the move to sack Kramer at the right time. Had we waited any longer or during the break, it would have really hampered the team even more than what we are now. At least now he has a good solid 2 months plus the 4 games to really evaluate the players, get them disciplined, like you said, and get them structured. So on this week's episode, right, we're going to talk about giveaways, the winners and losers, and then get into the game and get a little bit to Englische Woche. First, giveaways, giveaway winners. Kirk Bosens, fitting because my Commanders played the Kirk Cousins Vikings this weekend, which we lost. But he wins the Bolter t-shirt, the Angry Tree t-shirt. And then the bonus giveaway, which is I wore this last week, free Katuchu. Edwin Goodwin, friend of the show, also both these guys are friend of the show. He wins that t-shirt. So both those t-shirts should be going in the mail. Thank you for all those who entered. So they're the winners of the giveaways. The losers of the giveaways is Schalke, right? Visor, he was all over us, right? 2 beautiful passes, 2 beautiful assists for goals. Giveaways led to his opportunistic chances that obviously led to goals. Again, it's at times like in this game where we played well for decent stretches, our giveaways are clinically destroyed against us by the opposition. And Werder did a really good job of that with those. We had numerous giveaways, I would say, but those 2 key were pivotal to their victory, I think.
Yeah, Visor was really good in this game. Not necessarily the tidiest in terms of his like pass completion and some other metrics, but didn't really matter ultimately because in addition to the 2 assists, I think he had something like 4 key passes or something. He created a number of chances outside of the assists as well. I think in that kind of situation, it doesn't matter what his what his accuracy or efficiency was overall because he more than made up for it. And yeah, he just looked a cut above everybody else on the pitch in this game. Both Bremen, I think, and Schalke. And once again, Tobias Moore for us starting at left back, not the position that I think it just hasn't worked out for him. I'll say that. And Mitchell Visor this week was I think a tough opponent for him to go up specifically. So yeah, I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due, and in this particular instance, I think this is a case of a guy just literally outplaying us, kind of off the pitch. So,
player of the match for sure. Played all 90 minutes, 2 assists. You mentioned the passes weren't that great, 69% passes, but 4 big chances. There's XG or X assists were 0.46. Had 99 touches in the game. He just was everywhere for us, and he had the clinical passes against us. But key giveaways that they were very opportunistic on, and they put it away. And so definitely, Yoshida was, lambasted on that last goal, completely beaten by Duksh, who had a great finish at the end. And then on the first goal as well that they scored on. Definitely. We got to get better at that. And that's something hopefully these next 2+ months, Reis really gets some structured, limits these giveaways, kind of play a more simple game. At times, I remember during the watch along, we were looking like guys like Bulter going for, you had a wide open like square and he goes for the hardest pass possible through 3 guys. And like, it's not going to work, dude. Come on. Like, what are we thinking? Keep it simple. So hopefully we can limit some of our giveaways going forward. I think it will help us in the long run to try to get a point or 3 going in the future and stay in this league. I mean, we're pretty close right now with Bochum, which is not saying much, right? But then after that, I think it's maybe Stuttgart, who's at 11. So they're about 6-point gap between us. We got to get better. But yeah, this week is going to be a long week. I think we were talking pre-pod about how Mainz is winnable, but like you said, that Bayern game looming on the horizon. Whenever we begin or end a season or a campaign with them, it's never fun. Never fun.
I mean, I use winnable in relative terms, obviously.
Compared to Bayern.
Nothing has been winnable for us recently, obviously. So it's not that there's not really any reason to be optimistic about Mainz. For some reason, I just feel like we're going to manage to get a result in that game, though, and sneak something. And, Mainz, decent season for them, solidly mid-table at the moment. But, all of their wins have come against, basically mid-table or lower opposition. I think Gladbach in 8th place is the highest table team that they've beaten. No one in the top 7. They've beaten up on Bochum and Augsburg and Leverkusen and Cologne and teams like that. So
did they draw Bayern this year? Was that them or somebody else?
I don't think they drew Bayern.
I'm curious.
I don't think they've played. I don't think they've played Bayern yet.
Fair enough.
No, they don't. They don't. No, I'm an idiot. I take that back.
They lost
2 of their. They lost 2 games in a row. I think recently it was Bayern and somebody else. Wolfsburg. Okay, this past weekend. So, and they got smacked by Bayern. But Bayern smacking everybody. Their goal difference is crazy right now. Almost
back
more than plus 15, I think. At the moment, anyway. But yeah, so I think that it's not as if they're necessarily being overly competitive against the better teams in the league. If we're stay organized, and I think we've been relatively organized under Rice so far, and are a little bit more opportunistic in terms of taking advantage of some of the clear-cut chances we do create. I think that we can potentially have a chance to pull something out of that one.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, you look at just this last game here at the Visor Stadium against Werder Bremen, and look at the lineups. Obviously, they came out with a 3-5-2. We came out with a 4-2-3-1, a pretty standard one at that. And the starting lineup was pretty much the same. It was the same, other than Terodde. That was the main difference between this game and the last game, is that Terodde started up top versus Polter in the last one. But Moore, I mean, FootMob is a nice website, but when you give Moore a 7.0 after last game, and it kind of discredits you there. But for the most part, I agree with the ratings. I mean, Mollett was ineffective completely. Bolter was ineffective. Thoughts on the starting lineup in this one?
I mean, as you said, very similar to last week. from both sort of like a shape in terms of an initial kind of starting shape, and then also the selection. Yeah, I don't know, maybe there's some underlying stats that I missed in Moore's performance. Watching that game, it certainly seemed like he was pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
For the most part. So yeah, I would disagree with that rating as well. I think both Kraus and Krall were okay in this one. Krall had some moments. I thought Karaman gave like a pretty good account of himself relative to some of what we've seen recently. Still had some moments too, but like he does seem to be a player that has the ability to link up and make the right decision at times and help kind of facilitate and connect some things. We struggle so many times to play accurate passes and things break down in transition, and he seems to be able to kind of dance through people occasionally and find an open player. Still just not enough service to Torada in general, and to the extent that he's on an island all season, I think it's just going to continue. Had one really notable chance from Mole from a ball from deep that ended up hitting the post. So pretty unlucky from Torada there, but that kind of service where he's one-on-one with somebody in the box and has kind of a clear-cut opportunity to get something on frame that just hasn't been coming his way often enough in this match or throughout the season. So it's tough for me to know how much to blame Torada and how much to blame the situation with the team in general. It's a tough position. It's certainly not the position he was in last year where he was getting a lot, more volume.
One player I thought that had a pretty decent game compared to his norm, Krall. I thought he had a pretty decent game. At least he was popping up on the offensive end a lot. He scored a goal early in the game. They called it back because of offsides or VAR hates Schalke, one of those. I guess technically it was the right call, but it's good because even before that goal, he had some shots that came close. Going for that Salazar howitzer from deep, and then eventually got the goal that I think deflected off somebody and went in the goal. But alas, I think it was offside. Was offside the call? I forget what it wasn't right now.
Yeah, it was Karaman was slow, kind of getting back.
Yeah, lazy. Position. That's right.
And I think it was Bolter that played a ball into him that he headed out to Krall, who kind of took it on the half volley or something, and it took a pretty big deflection. So it wasn't like he had like some very well placed shot. But we talk about it sometimes too. I mean, we get upset occasionally when a player like Salazar is being more wasteful than he needs to be, and potentially taking a shot before he's exhausted other avenues on a transition moment that may lead to a higher percentage chance. But at the same time, especially for a team like Schalke, when you're struggling to create clear-cut chances on target, sometimes if you have an opportunity like that, you just got to put your laces through it and see if you can get something off a rebound, or in this case, it was a deflection. And sometimes you make your own luck in that regard. So, hit with a lot of power and nice job from Krall. I would agree. I think the other shout is actually Matriciani in this game, who obviously we've been very critical of at times, and deservedly so. Even though once again, ideally he shouldn't be having to be involved in the starting lineup, and this amount of pressure and responsibility should not be falling on his shoulders. So I'm sympathetic to him from that perspective. But was okay against Freiburg, and I thought was actually like tidier than Yoshida in this one for the most part. So I want to give him credit too, because as not that he was amazing in this game by any stretch of the imagination, but as much as we've beaten up on him at times, I think this was an improved performance, and he deserves some credit for that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can even fault Schwoloff on either goal. Really, it was just poor defense, leaving key shooters, Duksch and Fulkrug, wide open to shoot wherever the hell they want. So kind of hard to block that. But, back to Krall, context is key. Like you said, when we were so critical of Salazar taking these shots, as you put it, at those moments, we were actually pretty good on the ball, getting a lot of chances. And so here you have options to pass that have been working and you're not doing it. This situation, like you said, is like we're creating absolutely nothing. And so the fact that someone's taking any kind of shot towards the goal, that's a positive there. So, context is always key in that. And yeah, I agree with the Matriciani shout. Absolutely. We, as critical as we've been, he has come up fairly decent in the last couple of games. Would he be better utilized coming off the bench? Probably, but we don't have that option at the moment, right? Who are we going to bring? Kolacek or whatever his name is? Probably not. He's not ready. Brunner, I think both you and I have started to not cooling off on him. I'm going to say cooling off on him because at first, it's good. He's very defensive. He doesn't get beat often, but his lack of offensive input or output, I should say, that's the part that's hurting us. And it seems like we're always trying to focus down the left-hand side, whether Moore wasn't doing it this weekend, but typically down the left-hand side. And the right side seems void of anything. He did have a couple moments in this game, especially after some substitutions, right? But for the most part, I've been cooling off on Bruno. You've been cooling off as well?
I mean, I don't know if I would characterize it as cooling off at him. I don't think my opinion's changed on him that much at all. It's that, but it is kind of what you said, is that he, for the most part, he's defensively solid. He's able to put pressure on the opposition, and he's usually not the one that's getting burned. But just so far this season has very rarely offered anything going forward. Last year with the revolving door that we had at the right back position, it was frustrating, but it wasn't as big of a deal because we had really consistent play from the other side.
Yeah.
Of the pitch. And so whether it was Obian or Çalhanoğlu, they were creating opportunities for us and contributing to the attack. Obian has not had that kind of season so far. No. And now he's injured as well. And so we don't have it from either side. And so I think that's why you and I potentially have been a little bit more like, let's give Aydin a couple opportunities, because that he's going to get further up the pitch. Is that necessarily the best thing given how, defensively leaky we were towards the end of the Kramer era? Right. Maybe not. But, given how little service we have and how little we've been able to create in general, at some point you got to kind of like look at some of those overlapping runs from a fullback as highly desirable, an opportunity to potentially get, some cheap crosses into the box, and, for opportunities for, Bolter's really good with his head as well. We've seen that repeatedly. Bolter scored a number of like glancing header goals and everything. So, and Terada's not bad in the box. He's weirdly like bad in aerial duels in other areas of the pitch, but he's not. Yeah, you know what I mean? Anyway.
Well, we talked about that on the air, right? How he said Poulter is actually pretty good compared to Terodde in terms of holding up the ball, especially the air play. And like, if you find a way to get both of them on the pitch where you feed it to the Poulter, he holds it up for Terodde. Terodde does some good things, but the aerial duels is where he seems to struggle, right? And Poulter's pretty good at it. Poulter's really good at those. And we've seen a couple goals already in the last few games where Poulter used his aerial ability to assist to somebody. I think he assisted on Drexler's goal in this one as well. So if you can find a combination of that, because certainly that's where Terodde is lacking. If he's lacking in anything, it's his aerial ability to win the long balls from Scholoff. Yeah.
No, I'd agree. And I think it's just, in this game, we had a decent number of shots that we took, just very few of them on target. So you can see that, we're just struggling with the talent that we have on the pitch at the moment, and also to create, higher percentage chances. So not the highest quality of the chances that we are trying to get on target. I don't know if that's a personnel issue that can be addressed in January. If Reis can continue to improve things as he beds in and spends a little bit more time with the team. Because of the selection that's been taking place under Reis, I think we're finally getting close to a point where we can say that we have kind of a fully formed opinion on a lot of the players. Yeah. Guys like Mole and Karaman, for example, were not getting a significant run in the side early in the season. It was kind of hard to judge what we had there. And Poulter as well, to some extent, very early in the season. I think we're getting a good look at all of these people now. And it's difficult to know like if the solutions are there in the squad. I think it's probably that we just need, some of our top tier guys back from injury. We need Zalazar back. He's such a game changer. We need Obian in good form and back and stuff like that. Would also be interesting to see if we see Florian Flick at some point. Danny Latza. Those are two guys that early on, obviously small sample size here with Reis, haven't been favored. But
yeah. You talk about the shots. We had 19 shots in the game, only 3 on target.
That's not a good percentage there. Yeah.
That's not good. I mean, they had 11 shots and only 5 on target, but 2 of them went in goal. And it's funny because you look at the XGs and they're at a 1.04. We're at a 1.38, and you're like, what the heck? But you look at the shots on target, XGs for the shots on target, they're 1.74. Pretty much, the 2 goals were 0.94. So we had 1 goal on 3 shots on target. We need to shoot more on target. We while we giving credit, I guess you want to call it credit to Krall for taking shots. You gotta like we yelled at shots all these times. Get it on target. Force the keeper to make a save. It's not just him. It's numerous guys that were doing that. But yeah, I mean, the statistics, yell in your face right there what some of the issues is for the club. But the first goal, obviously, Füllkrug. What a beautiful pass. Was it Gruev, or I forget who had that crossfield pass?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah,
such a beautiful pass, and
to Visor.
Yeah, and he backheel flicks it to Füllkrug, who wasn't marked, of course. Complete breakdown by our defense.
Yeah, And it was interesting because the few minutes before that, Werder Bremen had started kind of attempting these like crossfield diagonal switches of play that were working pretty well, and were allowing them to find some space and get an easy way to advance the ball for them. Like things would get bogged down and they'd suddenly turn and there'd be somebody on space on the opposite end of the pitch they'd be able to just kind of direct it to. So it was kind of coming.
Yeah.
And then finally, the Grove one just happened in rhythm. It was a ridiculous pass. Like
I guess the play kind of, right?
Wasn't like a half volley off the bounce with his left foot. He just laced. Like it was a beautiful ball from Gruev. And then Weiser was just, his pace was great. Takes it all the way to the end line.
He beat Moore on that play, or Yoshida?
I think it was more. Yeah, I did think it was more. He just burned more. Yoshida, I think, came over to try to help. Shvolov came out and kind of sold out for Weiser, and then that left the angle open for the goal because he ultimately cuts it back. Füllkrug runs onto it. Potentially could criticize somebody like Kraus for not like kind of sprinting all the way back in the box because there was a period of time once Weiser kind of cut deep and he kind of like held up, and then the ball ended up coming out, and you have to wonder if he'd kind of continued his run into the box, if he would have been there to potentially challenge Füllkrug. As he was shooting that. But I mean, anyway, just that's another thing I wanted to mention anyway. But yeah, it's a well-worked play from them. It's unfortunate we couldn't kind of clamp down on that once it looked like they were once again doing those diagonals and having some success with it. It didn't seem like we learned our lesson the first couple times that they managed to pull it off. But at the same time, credit to Weiser once again, credit to Grove for the ball. And then, Füllkrug's Füllkrug, man. You give him opportunities like that, he'll put him away. He's a good striker. And that was, trailing the play, running onto it, kind of easy finish.
Easy for him for sure. I don't think it was this game. I think it was the Freiburg match where Tobias Moore's brother, I believe, came out on social media and was like, Rice has put, I think it was Kramer too, but I think it was about Kramer. This is probably before Rice got there. He's like, Kramer keeps putting more at left back. He's not a left back. He's not a defender. He's getting beat and making it look bad. And you saw it in this game. I think had that been a left back like Oyan or Çalhanoğlu maybe, it wouldn't have gotten beat as bad. I mean, it doesn't mean they won't get him beat, but Moore didn't look like a defender there. He's not a defender. He's a winger. And that is, stark evidence of like why he shouldn't be at that position. And it's a good question in the chat about the Schalke have the defensive midfielders that can sniff out attacks in the 4-2-3-1. Kral has that.
I think we do. I think we do.
Kraus and Flick, I think, can do it, and they have the offensive ability to kind of spring the passes. They just everybody around him seems to be struggling, and their giveaways by everybody is killing the team. We can't seem to hold possession, but I think we do. Maybe not lots of.
And I'd probably make the argument that defensive midfield is our strongest position right now.
I agree.
I think you'd be more comfortable with any combination of Flick, Kral, and Kraus over almost any other position that we have on the pitch at the moment, whether it's center back or wide players, whatever. I think that's an area of the pitch that you actually have some confidence in week to week in terms of a higher floor baseline performance from the people involved.
Yeah, I mean, goalkeeper's obviously a weakness for us. So no one's really high on Schwoloff. Fairman is similar goalkeeper, and then say what you want about the third stringers, right? And then defense. We've said this numerous times. They're not a Bundesliga level defense. Even our best defense, if you included maybe Kaminsky in there, Brunner and Oyan, that's probably still not a Bundesliga defense. So the defense is absolutely a weakness for us.
You have Brunner, who's whatever. You have a post-prime Yoshida. You have Mitriciani, who's not a center back, although
Max
potentially,
Meyer.
Kraus, Flick, Kral, Max Meyer. Anyway, Mitriciani, who isn't a center back, although potentially should be. Because I think that we've been probably more critical of him in the right back role where his lack of pace is exposed a little bit more. It doesn't seem like he necessarily reads the game terribly all the time or anything like that. I think he's actually looked better since he's moved to the center spot. And then more as critical as we've been is that we've repeatedly said that we don't want him playing there. When we were talking about getting him on the pitch earlier, it was like a double stack, right, with Oyan at left back and
get
more
him right here.
Yeah, exactly. Like a Tirada Bolter partnership up top. And then more at like left mid, so he can whip in some crosses, that kind of a thing. It seems like every time we've seen him at the left back position, it hasn't worked out, and both managers have done that now. So I don't know what they're seeing in training or whatever to make them think that's a good idea. And we talked about Çalhanoğlu was playing with the U20s, right?
Yeah, this under 23s. Yeah.
He was fit. He was available. I don't know if it was, Rice was upset about the penalty that he conceded in the cameo last week, and so he didn't include him in the match day squad, or what the deal was. But like with Oweyan injured,
There's no options.
Once again, from a distance, I feel so much better about Chananoglu than Moore in that position. So it just seemed like a very surprising decision to me that I kind of disagreed with. Hopefully Moore is able to stay positive, and hopefully we get to see him in positions other than that. Because I mean, if what the report that you mentioned is correct, and he, a family member, whatever, was like being critical of where he's getting played, I'm sure that's obviously coming from the player, and whatever. Sure. But Moore can contribute. He has the ability to, but at left back, Moore is less.
Yeah, nice. Next week, or the last pod before the big break, I'll bring out the tactical pad. We can talk a little bit more about the positions where we think people can fit and stuff like that. But I think, like you said, I think our defensive midfielders are probably our strongest suit right now, especially given that Toronto's not scoring many goals. Bolter isn't either. These are probably our strongest position. Flick and Kraus are probably our number 1 and 2, but Krall is very aggressive, can do his thing, and Latza is the captain, obviously, and has experience. The attacking side is where we lack the creativity. Salazar was like our main guy, and even he's not that creative. He just has the heart and the tirelessness in him that he can constantly go at it. Mollett has some moves to him. Larson has yet to impress. Bolter needs the right opportunity, right? We saw that last year. He was fantastic last year, 10 goals, 10 assists or something. Toronto obviously was 30 goals. He needs to get the service. And Karaman, I think we saw glimpses of him on the wing, can do some things. While he's not fast, it's deceptive enough, and he has the passing ability to create some things. But by far, I think defensive midfielders are our strongest position on the team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This is kind of a depressing way to view that, but once again, it's just that when I look at our squad every week, that's the area where I'm never just concerned. I'm never like, oh God, who's going to be starting in there? How are they going to play? It's where you see like a Larson or a Karaman or a Mollett, something that's in there, and you're like, not exactly sure how I feel about that player yet, and where they're, that kind of thing. It's the center defensive midfielder position is usually a place of relative confidence.
Segue. Another area we worry about are the substitutions, right? We saw this under the Wagner area, how we had to wait forever and a day for a substitution to get made. Usually wait until the 85th minute before someone come on. And with Rice, the first couple games, they took a little bit long, but this game, first substitution wasn't until 64th minute when Bolter got hurt, and he came off for Larson. But then after that, we didn't get another substitution until after their second goal, where we talked about Weiser with the nice pass over the top, pass over Yoshida, and Dux with the nice cheeky finish. He scores, and then Drexler comes on. And then the third substitution didn't come to 85th minute. It's like, what are we waiting so long for this?
Exactly. Yeah. I think when we were on the live stream, I think I shouted that out for the first time around like the 57th minute, where I was like, all right, we're approaching 60 minutes. I think I've seen what I need to see out of the group that's on the pitch right now. I'd like to see some changes come in, maybe a Drexler, maybe somebody else. You and I were talking about Drexler early on.
Yep.
And then, as you said, when he finally does do one, it's close to 10 minutes after that, and it's forced by an injury. It's not even something that he had kind of planned or was doing. We get Drexler 10 minutes after that, fortunately, and then we don't even get the Poulter substitution until very, very late. And both of those players, Poulter and Drexler, had an impact on the game.
Yes.
And had some good moments. And I'm not saying it would have necessarily changed the outcome, but they combined for the one goal that we did have, the two substitutes. And if they had a little bit more time, maybe they could have clawed something back. Who knows? I think this, just to say that now, I mean, like, we had the shot off the post from Tirada. We had a goal disallowed. And despite that, still had a relatively competitive, XG. Like we were there in this game. They just had a couple ruthless finishes on the few chances that they had. And the second goal was a little bit cheap, which you can talk
last
about
week
second,
too. Same thing against Freiburg.
Yeah.
I think these last two games, what I've noticed, the biggest change from Schalke, from Reis to Kramer, are the substitutions. You mentioned the effect, Poulter and Drexler had when they came on the game. Last week, Tobias Moore and Toronto had a big impact on the team once they came on after halftime. So the substitutions, whatever they're saying to them, it seems to be working, but it's just that starting 11 that hasn't found the right mojo yet to click. An interesting question here in the chat where it says, where do you guys think Schalke should invest the most in January window? Not that we had much money. I mean, defense and goalkeeper, I kind of agree with Eric in that. And if you find a playmaking attacker, but I argue you could probably go to U23s and get it from the youth team as well. I want to see some of the younger guys get a chance as well, like Sidi Sane and some of these other guys. What do you think our main focus should be in terms of gaining bodies?
Yeah, it's tough because there's an argument to be made that it's the top of the pitch as well, considering that we've scored the fewest amount of goals in the league. But I think it has to be what was said by Eric and then also you, which is the back four, back five, whatever the situation is. As we mentioned earlier, you look at the starting lineup in this game. Brunner, Yoshida, Matriciani, Tobias Moore, and Schwalov. That back five combination is not a Bundesliga level back five, and regardless of what's happening further up the pitch, I don't think that you're going to survive and avoid relegation if that general level of play isn't increased a little bit. Who knows how that would have gone if Oyan and Chananoglu were healthy and available all season, and Vandenberg was able to remain healthy and was playing along Yoshida. If we had Kaminsky this entire time and could rotate him in potentially, who knows if things would have looked any different or been much improved. But I think we have to try to shore up things defensively and then hope that we can find a way through various, system changes with Reis to create a few more opportunities for the players we have. You still like, to some extent, Bolter, Terrata, Drexler at the Bundesliga level.
Yes.
I think they can create goals if the rest of the team is kind of clicking and humming. And the center defensive midfielder position, once again, Kraus, Krall, Flick. I mean, there's production there potentially as well. Yeah. We just have no wingers, which is part of the problem. Like Larson, cameo here again.
More he was potentially.
I thought he was poor again though. Larson in this game. Cameo.
Yeah.
He continues to do just absolutely nothing for me, unfortunately, which is sad because people were very excited about that signing. Karaman, better in this game, but not super convincing at all. Mole has had a couple moments here and there. Obviously has, the ability to play a creative pass, but he's wasteful at times too. So he hasn't. I don't think any of those guys have really grabbed a hold, of anything and said like, "Hey, I deserve to be playing." So it's tough. It's a tough situation.
I agree.
A lot of things to address.
Yeah, I agree about that. And then to wrap this up, obviously Englische Woche ahead, Mainz tomorrow, and then Bayern, the big game on Saturday. Obviously Bayern, we have to play our best game of the season just to hang in with them, and that's mostly from a structure or design standpoint. We gotta make sure we don't give away the big things. Like we can't do what we did against Werder Bremen, leaving the backdoor passes. They got fast-paced guys on the wings. Choupo-Moting scoring goals, former Schalke player. But I think the main game we need to focus on, is Mainz, right? It's a winnable game, as you said earlier, and they haven't been like world beaters this season. They've beaten teams in and around us, so we should be fairly competitive against them if we do our game. I mean, how do you see this game panning out on tomorrow?
Like I said earlier, I mean, like Mainz are having a much better season than we are, but they haven't been, grabbing results against the better teams in the league. Once again, the Gladbach, in terms of a table position only, the Gladbach is the most impressive win. That's an 8th place team. They've been beating up against teams that are sort of mid-table or below. I think despite the fact that Reis has continued the losing streak and he's 0-2 in his first matches, a 2-0 to Freiburg and a 2-1 to Bremen, both of which were not terrible performances relative to what we had been seeing towards the end of the Kramer era. I think there's every possibility that we could find a way to get something out of the Mainz match if we stay organized and are able to just be a little bit more ruthless on the offensive end.
Yeah, and some of the key guys for Mainz, we got to keep it. Obviously, Onisi was someone we know very well. He's a very good scorer. Ingvar Sen's got 4 goals, mainly coming from the bench. Look at his XGs, goals per 90, 0.95. So he's a super sub, basically. Anton Stock, 3 assists. Caricol got, yeah. And Caricol's got 3 goals, 2 assists. So, I mean, this team got some talent there. Doesn't mean they're world beaters by any stretch, and we can certainly play with them, but we need to make sure these key guys don't run away from us. We know where they are at all times, and I agree with you about Matriciani, and coming back to that is like he is better as a center back than a right back. And if him and Yoshida or whomever is back there, they need to keep an eye on some of these guys, the defensive midfielders as well, the wingers. Everyone's going to play their part. But it's certainly absolutely a winnable game, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just not looking forward to the Bayern game where we potentially have 4 former Schalke players playing against us on the pitch at the same time.
Yeah.
If you're able to get because you got Manuel Neuer obviously still there, Jupes, who's just had the strangest career trajectory I've ever seen in my life, Choupo-Moting. And then you have Goretzka and Sané as well. So it could just be a host of former Schalke players feasting against a Matriciani Yoshida center back pairing. Could be very, very ugly. That 6-2 against Mainz could be as bad, if not worse, against us. Yeah,
we saw a worse scoreline not too long ago, right? And Stash trying to make the World Cup team. A lot of guys are coming here. It's interesting. We'll see. We'll see what we can do tomorrow. Lineups, I would imagine, won't change much, if anything, honestly.
We want City Sane.
We do. Free CD Sane. No, we're not going to start that. We're not going to start that. We don't lose him. All right, let's wrap this one up. 2 games this week, and then no watch along tomorrow. Why not? We'll do it on Saturday. There is going to be a watch along hosted by Schalke and the New York City Schalke supporters in NYC. I forget the name of the place now, but we'll make sure to tweet it out. Check out Schalke US's Twitter page to find out where the location is as well. Jack, where can our followers find you on social media?
Find me at Twitter at JMMangan, JMMANGAN.
That threw me there. Find me on Twitter. I was like, wait, what? I think you say that every week, but
I usually said that on the back end. Yeah, I did it up top this time. Gotta keep you on your toes.
Keep me honest. Keep the stash honest. All right, very good. You can follow me at R_KHARMAN. Next pod sometime next week. Last one for a long time, but we'll do a watch along to wrap this first half of the season up. We'll catch you on the next video or podcast, whatever. Choose.